So white South African refugees arrived to the United States this week. Their refugee status is also kind of weird, but we'll talk about that another time. Today, let's talk about their treatment, their portrayal. They are even greeted by a representative from the United States. Here they are all beat up from their hard journey here. But listen to what he says, because it's very telling.
Welcome to the United States of America. It's such an honor for us to receive you here today. This is the land of the free, and we know that all of you have faced... I'm Chris Landau. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm the Deputy Secretary of State of the United States. This is my friend Troy Edgar.
Yeah, I'm the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. Again, welcome.
Wow.
So great to have you guys here.
I know you've gone through a long flight. I'm so happy to see you with our flag in your hands, and that flag symbolizes liberty for so many of us. Many of us, our families have had a journey not that different from the journey that you are embarking on today.
Ironic.
My own father was born in Europe and had to leave his country when Hitler came in the 1930s and made his way to South America first and then eventually to the United States. So he is an immigrant who actually, was able to benefit from the many blessings of this country. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to go and work for the government is because I wanted to give back to this country that really brought freedom to my family and allowed us to escape a very difficult situation in another country. So, I want you all to know that you are really welcome here and that we respect what you have had to deal with these last few years. We respect the long tradition of your people and what you have accomplished over the years. And I am sure that you will be successful. As you know, a lot of you, I think, are farmers, right? When you have quality seeds, you can put them in foreign soil and they will blossom, they will bloom. And we are excited to welcome you here to our country where we think you will bloom, and we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children, and then we will bloom and we will benefit alongside you. So thank you very much.
He called them quality seeds. I guess the rest of us that don't match that complexion are not. Almost like they're sympathetic to one group, but the others they just call illegal aliens and tell them to go back to their country. It's almost laughable how welcoming they are and how different the treatment is. But I want this to be a conversation. Familia, what do you all think about what you...
I just saw a video that Trump has brought in the white immigrants who are being poorly mistreated in their country, so he wants to save them. You Latinos for Trump, come to the front. Come to the front, you fucking disgraceful pieces of shit, you. What a fucking embarrassment you are to our people, to our culture, to our ancestors, who fought with their freaking lives against this very same regime that you got up, got dressed with your own right and your own free will and voted for this fucking piece of shit president that's here now. And we all, as a whole, the Hispanic community, get looped in with you all. As, oh, your people voted for him because you want to be white aligned so fucking badly. You know that when Christopher Columbus went to put the island of Puerto Rico, I'm talking to Boricuas right now. When he went to the island of Puerto Rico, he found the Taino people to be so warm and welcoming and giving that he went back to Spain and told the king, yo, give me 50 soldiers, I can take over the whole island. These people are giving to a fault. He went over there and captured all the natives, tortured, killed, sold, and raped the women. And you pieces of shit voted for the same type of motherfuckers. I'm so pissed. I can't even stop cursing. There's not even a word to describe what I think about you Latinos for Trump. There's no, because you are disgraceful beyond measure. And to get a pat on the head that you didn't even get. You're nothing more than a whore for a white man. And I'm talking to men and women alike.
This message is directed more towards those Latinos for Trump, not all those white KKK MAGAs, but more the Latinos for Trump. I'm very disappointed in your guys' behavior and the way you guys have spoken down on your own raza. But I just wanted to know your guys' thoughts on this white South African, this plane that just landed carrying 49 white South Afrikaners. Now, for a little bit of background, South Africa has for a long time been under apartheid. white South Afrikaners make roughly 12 times more than their black counterparts. Yes, yet they claim to be persecuted, they claim to be discriminated against, but yet they benefit from the largest wage gap difference in the entire world. They own practically the entire country. But yeah, now President Trump, after cutting off refugee programs from practically every other country and race, has now opened the door for these white South Afrikaners, has welcomed them with open arms, has given them refugee status, has given them housing, is going to give them housing, I should say, housing, money, benefits. Oh, and not to mention, he brought them on a government-funded private charter from Johannesburg directly to the United States. Obviously, this is very racist on his part. He has pretty much done away with all other countries, Latin American countries, Asian countries, Afghanistan, for example, other African countries. I just wanted to know, what is your guys' opinion? How are you guys going to spin this? How are you still going to say that he's not racist? How are you still going to continue to support this racist, fascist, bigot government? So I just wanted to know your guys' opinion. I know that your views are not going to change, that you're going to continue to support him, but let's have a real discussion. Tell me what you guys think, and how are you going to justify this?
Afrikaners is a dialect of Dutch. Dutch is a language that is spoken in a country in Europe called Netherlands, sometimes called Holland. These people who are Netherlanders, or the Dutch or the Hollanders, came to Cape Town very many years ago. They came as explorers and they landed in South Africa as they were looking for a place to refresh themselves after they were going along the African coastline for many, many days, probably months or probably years. So when they saw Cape Town and they saw the Cape of Good Hope, they found hope in Africa and they decided, let's rest here. They rested and finally they decided to stay. You also understand that South Africa gained its independence in 1994. It's one of the latest African countries to gain independence. When Frederick de Klerk, the last white president so far in South Africa, with whom Frederick de Klerk, handed power to the first black president of South Africa, a man by the name Nelson Mandela. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, right? And so there was a system of apartheid in South Africa, and apartheid was a kind of racism or a kind of segregation based on skin color, in which people were segregated in terms of traveling, in terms of schooling, in terms of health, in terms of transport. Think of it in any aspect of human life. There was a segregation based on skin color. And we also remember, the British are the ones who colonized South Africa. It was not the Afrikaners. The Afrikaners lay the way. They made the way for the British to come. Africans, I mean South Africans in this context. They suffered a lot in the hands of these Afrikaners and white people. The system of apartheid, right? Later on, reforms were made. The UN came in, the international community came in, and we saw a reform on this abusive system. Reforms are being made where there's equality, When the white settlers came, they took prime lands, beautiful parts of South Africa, the same thing they did with Kenya, the same thing they did with other African countries. Now the tables have turned in South Africa. That whom was being oppressed is now said to have gained freedom and now is being the oppressor. The white Afrikaners are calling Africans their oppressors. It's like things have been changed. Think of it as reverse racism. But really it ain't that. It really ain't that. The Afrikaners have lost that heritage. They have lost that pride of white privilege. And that, I believe, is the problem they are facing right now. Moving to America, going to America by the means that have been laid by Trump is just a decoy, There is I think they just want to go and find it easy than make it themselves back home. You know, the grass is greener where you water it. The grass is not greener on your neighbor's side. South African Afrikaners are people with whom the whole world community are reacting to them. We have the Latinos who are also reacting to them. And I want us to listen to what these Latinos have in mind. I shall get back where we shall also have a deeper critical analysis. And let's dive in.
Told you MAGA does not know what they believe in. Say we make everything about race. Donald Trump got rid of the refugee program. Rid of it. Dunzo. No more people in our country. And MAGA's like, yeah. Even the brown people. The brown Latinos for Trump. Yeah. But then, the Trump administration has decided to let in white South Africans. And it's not even about race. They're making it about race. They have to be white. You can come to the US if you're white. We will roll out the red carpet. We will fly our planes over there and buy you plane tickets. And you know how wrong this is? The Episcopal Church just announced we're done helping refugees with the Trump administration. Why? Because you're allowing white South Africans in and not Afghans, not Venezuelans running away from corruption. And stay tuned, more white South Africans are coming, and MAGA will be cheering them on.
Explain to me again what's the difference between the South African refugees and the Latin American refugees? Because I know it's not a white versus brown thing, right? We don't do that shit here, right? Oh, no, you're right. It's because the South African people are being persecuted, right? And the other guys, oh, wait a minute. You know what? At least the South African refugees, they're not going to get freebies. They're not going to get free housing, cash, benefits, all. Wait a minute. So again, explain to me what's the difference and why we're persecuting one group and telling them to go home, but the other group, we're literally opening the door and letting them cut in front of the line in front of everyone else that's been waiting for years. Why are we doing that again? Oh yeah, so you got nothing, right? That's why the crazy right is very quiet. Because they have nothing, and they know this.
Colonization equals invasion, occupation, cultural erasure. They didn't just come and live, they came with weapons, religion, and laws to control and exploit native people and resources. Literally a tale as old as time, but they just have the same pattern. Part 2, how did white people gain power in Africa, specifically South Africa with the whole Afrikaners, the Dutch British settlers. So in 1652, Dutch settlers, later known as Boers or Afrikaners, arrived at the Cape of Good Hope to set up a supply station for ships. These Dutch settlers began to seize land from indigenous African groups like Khoikhoi and San, using a mix of forest disease and land grabs. Sound familiar? The British took control of the Cape Colony in the early 1800s. They fought multiple wars against both black African kingdoms like the Zulu and the Boers. I'm so sorry if I'm not saying these right. Eventually, white colonizers, British and Dutch descended, consolidated control over most of what became modern-day South Africa. White minority rule solidified. By the early 1900s, white settlers, who were always a small minority, held the vast majority of land, political power, and wealth. In 1948, apartheid was officially established, a brutal system of racial segregation where the white minority, about 10%, ruled over the 90% black majority with military-backed force. This is similar to Palestine and the US because the pattern is global. Colonizers arrive, claim land and resources, label resistance as savage or terrorism, install systems, laws, religions, money to legitimize their power. Then, generations later, when the oppressed fight back or demand justice, they are portrayed as the aggressors. Same story. Native Americans in the US, Palestinians in occupied territories, Aboriginal Australians, Black South Africans under apartheid. The bottom line, white people didn't just show up in South Africa, they colonized it with force, systematic racism, and centuries of exploitation. And yes, they remain the minority, just a historically empowered one through violence and colonial backing. The end of the apartheid was not a gift, it was won through blood, resistance, and solidarity. And even after apartheid's legal end, economic and racial inequality persists. That's why land reform and reparations are still being fought for, which is why the Afrikaners are trying to come over here as the excuse. And it was telling me that some of the same white South Africans, mostly Afrikaners, who historically benefited from apartheid and land theft, are fleeing the country under claims of persecution. I'm still reading through it all because I'm just telling you guys like tidbits. There's a lot of the fact that they're bringing in people that have their same patterns that already have been doing the same thing over there in Africa. And I mean, the only reason why they're kind of failing now is because the money and I mean, that should give us an idea of, like, that's where we got to hit them in the money, you know, in the pockets. And let me know what you guys think. And thanks for watching 2 parts. I never really make these, but I had to talk about this, and hopefully I can find people to talk about it with, because I don't really have anyone to talk about this stuff with.
Hey, what you doing? You gonna work? That's crazy. What you doing? That's crazy. Well, I'm over here just thinking. It only took 49 Afrikaners to completely break the internet in South Africa, across the world, and in the United States of America. I personally have not met any of those that have come over as refugees since the 12th of May. But you know what? I do share one commonality with those 49 Afrikaners that have come over from South Africa to America. And that commonality is waking up in a country where you are loved, where you are cherished, and where you are safe. There is a very, very good feeling in a man's heart when you know you can wake up and you don't have burglar bars and alarms surrounding you. You know your children are in bed safely, not murdered or raped. You know that you do not have to live behind a 10-foot fence like you do in South Africa, not to keep wild animals out, but to keep wild people that have been sent by the government to murder and kill you and fearmonger you if you own property. So the land compensation where in South Africa, where the government wants to steal land, really put us over the boiling point. That's why we're seeing the refugees come to America. And although there were only 49 on the first flight, we can expect thousands more fleeing from a communist pagan state known as South Africa, run by Cyril Ramaphosa and the ANC Communist Loving Party. The freedoms of our people are important, and all the people that are coming to America from South Africa will thrive. You will have refugees that will have degrees in engineering. They will be doctors, they will be farmers, they will be nurses, they will be pharmacists. They will be much, much more than your normal refugee, because these are people who are educated, God-fearing Christians who love the Lord, who have been persecuted based on the color of their skin. Now Americans have embraced them, and they continue to embrace them. There is a beautiful buzz around America. I'm here in the South, and everyone's asking me, are your family coming over? Are your friends coming over? And I say to them, yes, many of them are coming over. My phone is absolutely blown up, and I'm just giving some positive news. So go out there, fill in the form of interest that the US Embassy in South Africa has sent you. Fill it in and trust God that He will look after you, because the land of the free is waiting for all those who want to come from South Africa to America and enjoy peace and freedom, something that we have not enjoyed for 31 years in South Africa. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask us on X or Facebook or everywhere you see us. Come on and support the South Africans, as we know this is a huge time, and the unknown is something that makes a person very fearful. But do not be afraid, for God is in charge, people.
Thought of the day. So I've been thinking about these expedited 49 Dutch settlers that were flown to the US. Like, it's interesting because I see a lot of US citizens are complaining that it's unfair because the refugees program has been stopped, and yet Trump is flying in these people and chartered flights some more. So I'm thinking maybe Elon Musk paid for the flight, and also Elon Musk paid for every refugee to come in because he wants to help his people, right? And then I'm also thinking that the plan that Elon Musk has for the Dutch settlers is that they will probably set up a town, or who knows, maybe even a state in the US, which will be for Afrikaners only. You know, something like ORANIA, which is for whites only in South Africa. Of course, in the US, they can't have it as whites only, so they would have it as Afrikaners only. And then very similar to like the Amish people have. The only thing is, I know that in the USA, you cannot have racially exclusive towns, because even the Amish, it's not allowed to be racially exclusive. The only reason why there are no non-whites there is because sometimes they do have, but they don't last because the lifestyle is not suitable. So anyway, this is just what I'm thinking is happening, which I totally support. I full on support, because these people who are actually from the Netherlands, their own homeland is totally ignoring them. Then for South Africa, they are just not a good fit for South Africa, because, I mean, we've seen they can't assimilate. Their culture is a culture of racial exclusivity. So, of course, we cannot accept such a culture in our country, especially not with our history, and especially not from the people who were responsible for that horrible history, right? So for me, I'm happy that they have found a place and that there are people helping them. It's the right thing for them to do. I'm totally for it. But then for those who stay, you'll know my stance about ORANIA. That is a no-go. Not for South Africa. And for those Dutch settlers, colonizers, because, sorry, that's what you are. Because, you know, I cannot, people get upset when I use the word Afrikaaners, so I have to, and others get upset when I use the word Boere, when that is actually what you used to call yourselves before. So anyway, for you guys, if you're going to stay back in South Africa, I think your Cape Independence and your Oranias and Kleinfonteins and whatever, those racially exclusive places, or trying false starts or trying to break away from South Africa, I think you all are going to have to shelve that little idea, okay? So that's just my opinion and thought of the day.
On the same day, the U.S. welcomed white South Africans as refugees. Afghans who risked their lives to help our military were told to prepare for deportation. These Afrikaners, descendants of apartheid leaders, were flown in on a U.S. government jet. Trump called them victims of genocide, and they waited just 3 months. But here's the reality. White South Africans still own most of the land and are far less likely to live in poverty than black South Africans. Yet, Trump's team said Afrikaners were welcomed because they're easier to assimilate. They'll get housing, phones, furniture, formula, and, according to Trump, citizenship. Meanwhile, Afghan interpreters, engineers, and soldiers, the ones who helped us, are being told it's safe to go home. Safe? The UN says those same allies are being hunted down and killed. So, what does it take to be a refugee in Trump's America? It's about power.
When I say certain people have the complexion for protection, this is what I mean. These are the white South African refugees that are coming to the United States after Elon Musk lied and spread misinformation on Twitter, saying that these white South Africans were experiencing G-side by the political party in charge. Here's the timeline of events. On July 31st, 2023, Elon Musk tweets, "They are openly pushing for G-side of white people in South Africa." Then he tags the president of South Africa and says, "Why do you say nothing?" So as you can see, Elon Musk has been fueling this fire and spreading this misinformation for fucking years now. Fast forward, Elon Musk spends $300 million getting Donald Trump elected. Donald Trump wins. And the first day in office, January 20th, 2025, when he gets inaugurated, Trump signs an executive order ending the refugee admissions program. An executive order that basically says the United States lacks the ability to absorb large number of migrants, and in particular, refugees, because of the availability of resources for Americans. Essentially declaring that the refugees coming to the United States were competing for resources against Americans. Elon Musk then uses the power of being in Trump's ear all the fucking time and up his ass and turns Trump against South Africa. Even though the claims of white G-side are ruled not real by a South African court, literally 4 days later signs an executive order called Addressing Egregious Actions in the Republic of South Africa, where he cuts off all funding to South Africa. Then he fast-tracks white South African citizenship while rejecting all other refugees. Here's where the story gets better.
Here's where I say that they had the complexion for protection, because these white South Africans are descendants of mainly Dutch and French colonial settlers who first came to South Africa more than 300 years ago. They were at the heart of the apartheid government that systematically oppressed non-whites. Yeah, they're the ones who get to come here on an air-conditioned plane, walking through the airport, welcome to the United States, given flags for a fucking photo op. Meanwhile, the Afghan refugees who helped the U.S. military during the U.S. military operations in Afghanistan are in dangerous limbo after the Trump administration ordered a pause on the refugee resettlement program. Meanwhile, this is how Black Haitian immigrants are welcomed to the United States. Meanwhile, other refugee populations that are non-white, this is how they come to the United States. I'm not saying that motherfuckers gotta look like their story or look like they struggled, but there's a clear differentiation between people who have valid concerns, valid refugee claims, and seeking asylum versus these motherfuckers that are coming in shorts and look like they're well-fed and look like they have good clothes on their fucking backs. If you really want to deconstruct all the fucking hypocrisy all the fucking way, why is it that the reason that the U.S. refugee resettlement program was scrapped was because the refugees were competing for resources against Americans, yet the literal website that's helping them resettle into the United States is openly saying that these white South Africans are going to receive financial assistance, a one-time federal grant, $1,275 per person, cash assistance, supplemental nutrition assistance program, yeah, food assistance, food stamps, housing assistance, medical assistance, work and employment support. And to top it all off, they won't have to even prove that they were being persecuted. The complexion for motherfucking protection.
So, after carefully listening to this video, now the people who are speaking are Latinos, and Latinos are speaking from an experience of someone who is being endangered in the United States of America. You know, the US is predominantly white people. They are the largest population. Now we have the Latinas, the Red Indians, and then we have the black people, right? So these other communities other than the white people are people who are always discriminated, particularly the black people. So Latinas giving their experience, they are giving their experience from the perspective of someone who is not treated right by the system, you know. So if they react, if they give their thoughts concerning the situations in USA, in South Africa, and Trump allowing those people to come into USA, I'm coming back and I'm thinking that it is a hypocrisy. Now, charity begins at home is what we are told. Charity begins at home. If you want to do good things, I think you should start doing it at the closest step. You know, one step away, you do it there. You know, love your neighbor as you love thyself. You can't say you love God and that person with whom you are with close, you don't love them. That is not true. That is a hypocrisy. You can never say that. You can't say you love God and that person who is close to you, you can't take care of them. You're taking care of someone who is far. That is what Trump is doing, right? Trump is not taking care of his population as he should. I'm not saying it's wrong to take care of the South Africans, no. The Latinas are a perfect example of people who suffer under the influence of a racial system, systemic racism and individual racism, right? Now, the Afrikaners are complaining of the same, but it's not true. We've had people giving their thoughts. Even President Cyril Ramaphosa came forward and said, these people are lazy. These people don't want to work hard. They don't want to fight. There's not even any fight they are going to fight, actually. They don't want to work hard. They want to go somewhere where it's okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm coming back and thinking, it's better to die standing than to live begging, right? If they go to the USA, do they think it will be easy? It won't be easy. You know, it's easy to welcome you. You will be a guest for some days. And then when your days, when you have overstayed, is when you'll realize that overstaying anywhere is not really a good idea. It's actually a bad idea, right? The Latinas giving their thoughts is a person who has experienced something from the system, something that does not favor them, oppression, The white Afrikaners have never experienced that. They don't. Not to the level of the Afrikaners. They should stay in South Africa and work hard. That is what I think. I want you to also come forward, share your thoughts. Let's listen to what you have to say as well. Let's continue this discussion on the comment section. Yeah. Thank you for watching the video. If you have gained value, please subscribe. I'll surely appreciate. And see you in the next one.